You have quorum. It is after 6. I'm going to go ahead and call this evening's meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals for the City of Florence to order. First item on this evening's agenda is approval of the minutes from the March 11th, 2021 meeting. Minutes have been submitted to the board. Are there any changes or amendments to the minutes from members of the board?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, ayes have it. Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Next item on this evening agenda is BZA hearing number 2021-04. This is a variance request from the rear and side setback requirements in table 2-6.1.1, the Unified Development Ordinance for a commercial building. Location is East Palmetto Street and South Jeffords Street, tax map number 90117-22-002. Owner of record is Margaret M. Poston. The applicant is Randy Scurry. Staff will now hear from, the board will now hear from city staff.
All right. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So this request, the applicant Randy Scurry on behalf of Jackie Poston's store, a variance from the side and rear setback requirements for a commercial general, a commercial building. This project originally received a variance from the board back in September of 2020. Mr. Scurry came to us after he discovered a discrepancy in the initial request with the drawing. So he is applying to correct that variance request error. Here's the vicinity map. It's between East Palmetto Street, Cemetery Street, and South Jeffords Street. Again, this is Jackie Poston's store on East Palmetto. It is zoned commercial general. The lot to the south is zoned in the county, and it's actually zoned B3. It's a vacant lot. So that will be the property most affected by this variance request. And here's the future land use, commercial auto urban. So here is the rundown of the top. That is what is actually existing today. You can see the hatched marks. That is the outdoor enclosed space. It's circled down right below it, that picture. And it's just a storage area. In the middle is what the zoning board, this board, granted a variance for back in September of 2020. So this was the drawing that you guys originally got and staff reviewed and was actually approved. So the variance granted was for an 18-foot setback for the side on the east side, and then the south side, a 15-foot setback was granted based on this drawing. The applicant, Mr. Scurry, has since realized that the initial drawing was incorrect, and the drawing on the right is the most accurate of what the proposed construction will entail. So he is requesting tonight a 2-foot variance on the east side, which would give him an 18-foot setback. And he's asking for a 36-foot variance on the south side. So that's the difference. It would be a 4-foot setback instead of the initial request for a 15-foot setback. The circular areas, the pictures, you can see that enclosed shelter is already there. And that space will just be enclosed for this construction. So this building will get no closer to the vacant lot. It will get no closer to Cemetery Street. It's just that the variance requested has changed significantly. So here are some site photos. The picture on the right, you can see that outside storage area that was drawn incorrectly. And this is approximately the footprint of the rear setback, right adjacent to Cemetery Street and that vacant lot that we've discussed. So here it is facing north towards East Palmetto Street. You can see it's There's a bit of a difference between it and Cemetery Street. I think Cemetery Street just has a large right of way. But again, that it's 4 feet from the property line, that enclosed structure at this current time. And here's some additional photos of the fueling station. So the variance conditions, this building was constructed prior to the adoption of the Unified Development Ordinance. The old city ordinance allowed for a 20-foot rear setback instead of the current 40, and a 10-foot side setback instead of the current 20-foot requirement. The surrounded on 3 sides by streets, limiting the options for expansion. That the spirit of the ordinance will be in public safety and welfare secured. The east side of the property requiring the 2-foot setback variance is adjacent to commercial property. The south side is adjacent to residential property, but also has the vacant lot, zone B3. The proposed expansion will not encroach any closer than the current built environment. The difference will be an enclosed structure instead of one that is open. That there are extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. The commercial parcel is essentially surrounded on all sides by roads, limiting expansion possibilities. Number 4, that these conditions do not generally apply to the property in the vicinity. The hardship is limited to this parcel because of the unique layout and being surrounded by 3 different streets, and the original layout being constructed with respect to previous city setbacks. Number 5, that these conditions, a particular piece of property, would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict utilization of the property. The current setbacks for a commercial building in the commercial general district would restrict the owner's desire to expand their building to accommodate their future business. And finally, 6, that the authorization of variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property. The proposed building expansion of approximately 1,500 square feet to the existing gas station is a continuation of a use that has existed since 1975. The current proposal requires a greater variance request than initially requested, but the expansion is not physically increasing the setback. The proposal is in line with future land use along East Palmetto Street, commercial auto urban. And that does conclude staff's report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Are there any questions for city staff from members of the board?
I have a
Yes,
question.
sir.
Are we
Mr.
just-
Chairman-
Yes, I have a
Chairman.
question.
Go ahead, Ms.
Go ahead, Ms. Dees.
Mrs.
Oh,
Moses,
I'm sorry, Ms. Moses, sorry.
are we just talking about enclosing that open area?
Yes, and there also have proposed construction to the east side of the building as well. I can go back to that slide if you want me to, and that shows.
'Cause that's a small area really where that building is, and it's a busy section right up in there, right? You know, East Palmetto Street is very busy.
That's true. Yes, ma'am.
Could you show the slide where you, because I'm only understanding the enclosure.
Yes, ma'am.
In the rear section, she's referring to, that is off of Cemetery Street, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It was pretty last time. The east was the same, but the south side is the difference. Yes, sir. So yeah, this is the best screen here. So the south side, that's the enclosed area behind the store. But then to the east side, that is also a proposed expansion. And the side setback variance granted initially by this board is not changing. The error was with the south side.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, just to clarify, Ms. Dees, the part they're looking at is along Cemetery Street, not along East Palmetto.
Okay, I see it.
Yes, ma'am. I think there was another question out there from the board.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Back in when we initially, not we, but when we did this back in September 2020, it was originally granted, and I think we can't really is it the builder who made the mistake on not having the exact setbacks? Is that what I understand?
think it was the design engineer that originally did the drawings. And
And we grant, or not we, I was president at that in September 2020. Actually, I was there to make sure we were properly represented as well as a quorum. And I did remove myself from that voting process, but as well as I asked questions, but I removed myself. But it's been 10, 20 years since Jackie Poston has passed away. And so any business affiliation with them, and as far as my company, which is my father's, it has ceased 10, 20 years ago, but I removed myself back in September 2020. And if you don't mind, I would like to do the same thing just to make sure there's no ins and outs, but I would still like to ask questions and make sure that everything is properly disclosed.
Okay,
Just presenting that to the chairman.
yes, sir. All right, Mr. Chico, did you have a question? I thought I heard your voice come in.
Yes, currently that the rear setback from the enclosure, it's already at the 4 foot, the 4 foot setback from the property line.
that is
Because to the south, on that southeast corner, there's a dumpster pad and a dumpster also. Is that going to change?
We can ask Mr. Scurry that when you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're fine. You're fine. This is only questions. Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, that was the question that was in my mind.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right. Aside from Mr. Chico's question for the applicant, are there any other questions for members of the board? All right. Thank you, Mr. Dawson. The board will now hear from Mr. Scurry. Mr. Scurry, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
If you don't mind, sir, I'm going to swear you in. Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, Mr. Scurry, you may proceed.
Yes. The existing enclosure was left off of the original survey by David Nesbitt, and we didn't pick it up on the first request for the variance. But we had to change engineers due to issues waiting on the previous engineer, and he picked it up. So that's the reason we refiled the petition for a variance. Since the enclosure was already there and it's been there for a number of years, he suggested that we approach the board again and see if we could get a variance to enclose that portion, but no more.
I got you. And Mr. Chico, you can ask your question of the applicant if you want.
Yes, sir. In your new proposed layout, is that dumpster and dumpster pad going to change location? Because
I would not think it would change location if it doesn't fall within the footprint of the building. I don't think it would change.
That kind of answer your question, Chico?
yes.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant, for members of the board?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Scurry mentioned that previously David Nesbitt is the one who initially did the engineering and as far as the survey. So
yes,
they're not using Mr. Nesbitt anymore. Who are they using for the engineering?
Michael, I can't think of his name. Michael Paget is the design and the structural engineer for the building. And he's actually the one that found a discrepancy in the survey. And I called and contacted Mr. Nesbitt, and he said, yeah, it was on his original survey, but it was not plotted on the drawing. and that's the reason we decided to go back to you guys.
So Mr. Pageant is your engineer.
Yes, he is. Yeah, Michael Pageant. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir.
All right, are there any other questions for members of the board? All right. Thank you, Mr. Scurry. There being no other,
Yes, sir.
the chair will now entertain a motion to either approve or deny the variance request.
Hey, this is Larry Adams. I'll make a motion that we grant the request for variance based upon the following finding facts. Number one, that a variance from the terms of zoning ordinance will not be contrary to the public interest when, because of special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provision will, in this individual case, result in an unnecessary hardship, in that the building was constructed prior to the adoption of the new Unified Development Ordinance. The old city of Florence zoning ordinance allowed that 20-foot rear setback instead of the 40, as well as on the 10-foot side setback instead of the current 20-foot setback, as well as the board has already previously accepted and approved the variance, as well as the lot is surrounded on 3 sides by streets limiting the options for the expansion. Number two, that the spirit of the zoning ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done, because the east side of the property, now requiring that 2-foot setback variance, will be adjacent to the commercial property, as well as the board approving the variance back in September of 2020. The south side is adjacent to that residential property, but the proposed expansion will not encroach any closer than what the current built environment. The difference will be enclosed structure, which is in the rear of the building, is open instead of closed. Number three, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property, namely that this is a commercial parcel that is essentially surrounded on all 3 sides by roads, limiting any possibility of expansions at the time. Number four, that these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity, in that the hardship is limited to this parcel because of the unique layout of the property. It's being again surrounded by all 3 sides by the streets, and that the original layout of the building was in respect to city setbacks at the time for commercial buildings. Number five, that because of these conditions, the application of the zoning ordinance to a particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of property by the current setbacks for a commercial building in the commercial general district, that would restrict any of the owner's desire to expand that building to accommodate any of their business needs. And number six, that the authorization of variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance, because the proposed building expansion of the approximately 1,500 square feet to the existing gas station is just a continuation of the building that has been there since 1975. The current proposal requires a greater variance than what we initially approved back in September of 2020, but the expansion is not physically increasing the setbacks currently on the site. The proposal is in line with future land use as stated by the city for East Palmetto Street, which is commercial auto urban.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much, Moses. All those in favor of granting the variance request, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. The variance request is approved. Mr. Scurry, we thank you very much. You're welcome to stick around, but that concludes our, need for your participation in the meeting. Thank you very much, sir.
Let me thank you so much for your help in this project.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
There being no other items on this evening's agenda, is there anything that needs to be brought up by either members of the board or city staff?
We are good.
We are good. All right. You have a
All
mo-
right. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right. All in favor?
Give that emotion.
Aye.
We are adjourned. See everybody else on April the 22nd. Put it down in your calendars, boys and girls.
Thank you, Chairman.
Great day.
Very nice to
So,
do.
everybody-